Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, we're going to carry on talking about what's happening in the capital because the Extinction Rebellion campaigners are continuing to disrupt transport links across the city in protest planned for a fortnight. 300 people arrested since the start of the week already. Well, this was a scene in East London earlier today after 3 people glued themselves to a Docklands-like railway train at Canary Wharf. One man stuck himself to the side of the train while 2 others glued their hands to the roof. They were removed from the train by police after about 2 hours. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan says targeting public transport to raise awareness of climate change is counterintuitive.
I'm concerned about the difficulties workers are facing to get to work, the challenges the businesses are facing, but also the protesters are now targeting public transport. Our tubes are used by about 5 million people on a daily basis, our buses by 6 million, and the best way to address the issue of climate change is for people to be encouraged to use public transport or to walk and cycle. So inadvertently, the protesters are driving people away from public transport to use minicabs and other things. And so I'd encourage the protesters to work with the police and the authorities to make sure they protest peacefully and lawfully as well.
So will the protesters' actions have any effect in the long term? And at what stage does such disruptive action lead to a loss of public support? Well, to discuss that, I'm joined by a visiting professor of forecasting and innovation at London South Bank University, right in the middle of all the disruption, no doubt, James Woodhousen. Thank you, sir, for your time this afternoon. Are you a fan of these protesters?
No, I'm not actually. I fully accept the right for free speech, to protest, even to disrupt, providing that the protesters can persuade the people that their cause is just. And I don't believe the planet does face extinction. I certainly don't believe we can end all carbon dioxide emissions on a net basis by 2025. And I think there is a somewhat contemptuous attitude that the protesters share with Parliament in relation to the common man and woman in the street. I think we need much more persuasion before we can get along with this kind of inconvenience.
Right, we're not really here to discuss whether climate change is a real threat or not, but in terms of disruptions and disrupting the capital, what do you think of that, James?
Well, if it was the Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests in France, who are supported by 70% of the population and are angry with the government for increasing taxes on diesel cars, all in the name of climate change, then of course I'd be along with the 70% and be prepared to have my commute interrupted and all of these things. I think when you're dealing with people who claim the mantle of Martin Luther King, who believe that young people or even 6-year-olds have enough political experience and moral compass to tell us the future and instruct us terrible adults to cut back on our consumption, that's a rather different matter. That doesn't persuade me or the common person that the inconvenience suffered is the right cause, and it doesn't put forward a political movement, really, beyond a few hundred people seeking the television cameras by using glue on public transport. It's very dangerous, invites even more police presence than we have already stewarding demonstrations. And I don't think it's, serves the cause of democracy at all. I think you'll find with Sadiq Khan and Chris Bryant many sympathizers with them. They don't like the inconvenience, but they do think they're doing the right thing. I don't think they are doing the right thing. If you breathe out right now, like that, 18% of the human body is carbon, and you're breathing out carbon dioxide all the time. We get much of our cars, our planes, our utensils from carbon. It's a wonderful material.
Okay, James. Let's bring in the environmental journalist Guy Vince into this debate. Guy, I know that you were smiling there, so you're listening to what James has got to say. I mean, fundamentally, he doesn't think it's a good idea. These protests aren't going to go anywhere. How would you respond to that?
Oh, I was just laughing at the notion that we breathe out carbon dioxide, so carbon dioxide is great. That's to fundamentally misunderstand human-caused climate change, which is, of course, not the amount of carbon dioxide we're breathing out. That is not the problem, because we recycle the carbon dioxide, the plants recycle it. What's happening is we are burning fossil fuels, which is stored carbon, adding to the carbon dioxide load. and it's causing all sorts of problems, from acidification of the oceans, which is helping lead to the first ecosystem extinction that we will see on the planet, which is the of coral reefs.
But back to the demonstrators today. Back to the demonstrators today, Gaia. James is just getting his earpiece fixed, so we'll sort that out in a minute. But Gaia, the demonstrators, is it not counterintuitive to target public transport and force commuters into cars? The very thing you're trying to do is cut down on CO2 emissions. Do you not see the irony there?
I think that what they are doing is raising awareness of an issue which hasn't been dealt with by humanity. This is a really serious problem that we're facing, and I think that whatever movement that they are doing, which is a non-violent protest, is actually really important. We can all make a difference in different ways. You know, perhaps James has a different way of raising awareness of this issue. I don't know what his way is, but I'm sure he will agree that climate change is a very, very important issue.
Okay, yeah, James. I mean, we're talking about it, so the protesters are doing some good, aren't they? Because they've got the subject on the news across the country. How would you do it? What would your tactics be in terms of
Well, I don't
raising
think they are
awareness?
doing good. You see, I think they're angering a lot of people who need to know the right truth about climate change. And the truth is very simply this, that if you want to lower carbon emissions, I've got no problem with that. I believe in climate change. If you want to do it, then you've got to spend a lot more money on research and development for nuclear power, for nuclear fusion,
And the
for
governments
solar
aren't
panels,
doing that. So these protesters are trying to get the government to change their mind, or policymakers to change their mind.
If you'll allow me to speak, please. The government is pouring no money into research and development in these fields. Nuclear power, which is a low-carbon source of energy, is at a standstill throughout the West. And I don't hear any demands for technological development from Extinction Rebellion. What I hear is that we should all cut back, that we should cycle to work, that we should have cycle lanes for the privileged, that we should not drive a car, that we should be taxed so that we should not drive a car or use gas in the home, which is something actually the government is far from being aware of. They are trying, under the auspices of the Committee on Climate Change, to deny homes gas boilers, gas cooking, and that kind of thing very shortly. So it's a travesty of the facts to say that the public or people lack awareness on climate change. What they are not convinced about is that these counterproductive and contemptuous, self-indulgent and narcissistic tactics are the way to build our way out of the problem that humanity has partly caused with a warming planet.
Can I cut in there?
Yes, you can, Gaia. Please come in.
Sorry to be one of the narcissistic common people.
Don't apologise.
No, I'm not really apologising.
No, I realise that.
Sarcasm, it might take brilliant. So what I'm saying is that that's all well and good. It hasn't worked, okay? It hasn't worked. Your method hasn't worked.
Well, why? There's been no R&D. You've never called for any R&D. You don't know what R&D is.
Let Gaia come back, please. Let Gaia come back.
I don't know what R&D is.
Yeah.
I trained as a chemist. I think I know what R&D is.
Well, tell me about the way in which your movement has called for more panels and photovoltaic technologies
James, you've had your time. Let Gaia come in, please. Gaia, you have the final say. 1 minute, Gaia.
Right. So technology will and is already providing a lot of the solutions to our energy needs. Renewable energy has been massively invested in. But the other issue is, of course, social. So we need to reorganise ourselves socially. That means demanding, for example, that the UK doesn't anymore, as it is at the moment, lead the European Union in giving subsidies to fossil fuels. Okay, we're subsidising fossil fuels in this country more than we are spending on, than we are subsidising renewable energy.
Complete rubbish.
Okay. No, it's not complete
rubbish.
Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you both each other's numbers. You can carry on this after the debate because we unfortunately have run out of time. Gaia Vince, thank you. Unfortunately, I meant Gaia Vince. Thank you so much, and James Woodhousen. A really interesting debate. Thank you very much.
Let's go to climate change protests in your paper, Andrew.
Oh, yes, it's look at that waving the white flag. I fear this is about to be more like a red rag to a bull.
It's pathetic, actually. These people are dreadful. Indulge them one day, 3 days. They're coming back on Thursday. They're coming back on Friday. They've got no brain cells between them because they attach themselves to public transport. Public transport is a way of people can reduce carbon emissions. It means they don't use cars. It means a lot of people were driven into cars today because they couldn't get on trains and tubes. Ridiculous. They've also attached themselves to Jeremy Corbyn's home. Why would you do that? I mean, Corbyn, for all his faults, the old bearded Bolshevik has been banging on about climate change and environmental protection for decades, before some of those kids were even born. What do they think of? Not thought through, and what they've done, in my view, is even if their people had some sympathy for them, it's evaporated.
But Andrew, we're all talking about it, and that's what it's about.
No, we're talking about their ghastly behaviour, their ill manners. Think about Corbyn's neighbours. It's bad enough they've got hats outside with their cameras, but now they've got these dreadful old balls, these dreadful old balls stuck to his fence, and they call themselves Labour activists.
You're doing your bit for global warming with all this hot air.
Selfish, thoughtless, and not thought through.
Right. They feel passionately about one of the major, arguably the major issue of the time, climate change made by humans. If you go and speak to them, which I know you haven't, if you do, a lot
of it's caused by cows.
You will find...
Why don't they go and lobby the cows with all the methane?
They're very intelligent, they're committed, they're passionate.
They are thoughtful. Kevin, hang on. What's intelligent about lobbying Parliament when Parliament is closed? There are no MPs there. Thickos. Are they there? Is anyone there at all? Prime Minister's on holiday. They're lobbying down the street. She's not there, guys. She's not there. And Corbyn was probably on his allotment when they were lobbying.
Guys, can he call some of them girls or something, or women?
Well, girls as well.
Guys.
Hippies, middle-class morons.
Right, stop a minute.
At least you're not prejudiced and bigoted against them, and you're taking a very considered, even-handed view here.
Ridiculous.
A very objective view.
Ridiculous.
I'm relieved to say.
With their stupid drums.
And you're quite right, we are now talking about it, and they have
No, we're talking about them.
Stop a minute.
He can't. They've got...
Should we wheel him off somewhere else?
I know. I think we should have a taser. I really just think...
Oh, no, that's what we need for them, Kevin.
Water
and if we had a taser for them, you'd be protesting about the human rights.
Just bring in a taser.
OK.
Or a couple of carers.
Let's just imagine we've done it.
Anyway, I prefer the taser. You'll probably want the carers.
No.
Right.
Get a cattle prong for them. Where are Boris's hose pipes?
Stop.
They have got us talking about this issue, where it can become counterproductive.
Stop.
An admission.
No. Is if there is a backlash. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Not ridiculous.
I mean, where have you come from? Where have you come from? I mean,
He's Victorian. Anyway, move on.
The Victorians wouldn't have tolerated this.
Exactly.
Anyway.
But they'd pollute the skies, wouldn't they? Anyway, yes.
They've
come in their cars, their people's carriers, their Chelsea tractors. They've completely disrupted the high street. The whole of the West End in London has had no shoppers this week, which means because they can't get there. All the tourists who've come to London have been disrupted. So what do people do? They're shopping on Amazon again, which means more Amazon lorries hurtling through the street. They haven't thought it through. They ain't very right.
Let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. While you try and answer or counter some of this, the London mayor feeling the heat from police, suggestion that he's aggravating the situation and so on. But anyway...
Where has he been?
Which I think the police are unfair on that, because, of course, he does care about the environment too. He's just introduced a charge to try and get the most polluting vehicles out of the centre of London. It's like 10,000 people in London every year die from air pollution, 40,000 nationally, or the global...
Blame the cycle superhighways.
This is just getting...
Blame the cycle superhighways. They turn London into a car park, which means cars are just
You're talking about local issues, and this is about global issues.
They've brought London to a standstill. And I'm saying the cycle superhighways, which they have caused huge pollution because these cars are parked bumper to bumper. They've turned London into a car park. More pollution.
Have you changed your diet and eaten something with a lot of E numbers that you don't normally have? I mean, this is
true.
I'm moving on to the next paper. We'll get an explanation soon from Kevin.
Of course, he's expressing concern for the disruption to people's lives, particularly on public transport. And it
took him 3 days.
We see the picture here on the front of the Telegraph, the 2 people being removed from Docklands Light Railway train at Canary Wharf.
That was clever.
I love the way the police and the female protester on the right-hand side, we can see she's got got goggles on, which they gave us, who are using some solvent to take away the super glue they try to stick themselves on the train.
Do you think that super glue is good for the environment?
But I think the protesters now have huge sympathy for him, because whatever inconvenience it's caused in London and Edinburgh and elsewhere, just chucking it away,
it's true,
is going to be like nothing from the damage and the havoc that a human-created global warming can produce, with wildly fluctuating weather patterns, drought, rain. We've been seeing the
mayor's in charge of policing in London. There hasn't been any. And
if you target public transport, I think that's a tactical error by them.
Another admission.
Because we want people to use public transport more and stop using their cars individually. I also think it's quite funny them gluing themselves to Corbyn's fence.
Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? That's in the papers as well.
When he is the politician, probably more than any other for decades, who has championed this issue. They want him to get a bit stronger. Maybe.
Did they not realise
Maybe they live locally, but nevertheless, we've got to remember, and when you spout all this, you've got to remember they are non-violent, they are peaceful.
Oh, that's
legal right. It is a legal right to demonstrate.
Oh, how marvellous. They don't
democracy.
beat us up. They just disrupt that life.
At the same time,
marvellous.
Extinction Rebellion will find you'll get people's backs up if you do this.
And it's a stupid name for the organisation as well.
But they don't want the world to be extinct. And so rebelling against it. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's a useless title.
In terms of the ones outside his fence there, I think the Times it is that says that 2 of the group appeared tearful after he didn't speak to them and his wife refused their gift of chocolate.
Good for her. Because she doesn't want these dreadful people stuck to her fence. Who's going to fix the fence? Are they going to pay to get that fence? What about their poor old neighbours?
The Times are saying Labour activists. I don't know if this is disciplinary.
I think they should get momentum onto
offence.
Get them purged, kick them out of the Labour Party.
Look, Corbyn and his wife like to value their privacy and the privacy of their neighbours. They don't like it when the media is on their doorstep. They won't like it when there's a protest outside. So, particularly when it's on an issue. He has been very
And that picture will go all around the country. And what's it saying? Corbyn, to be fair to him, has campaigned for years on this, and they've made him out to be as if he's one of the bad guys.
See, you're only positive about Corbyn for the first time in your life, so you can be against them, can't you? And
perfectly good reason. Perfectly good reason.
OK, so then we go to the Daily Mirror, which is what this is all about, isn't it? The end of life on Earth by Sir David Attenborough, unless we change now. He giving full weight to protests, I suppose, by saying, are we going to be the last generation that sees animals like polar bears who are struggling because of melting sea ice?
Yeah, go on. Do you want to have a go? Do you want to have a go at a national icon, a national treasure, David Attenborough? Do you want to have a go at him too? Are you going to call him a crank and a nut?
Let me answer.
You don't think he's supportive of the protest?
I don't think I've heard a word of him supporting the
protest.
So
why did he give an interview right now during the protest?
Because he's got a TV series coming up.
But
that's why.
His heart. He's
got a TV series coming up.
Those protesters, because he sees what is happening to the environment in the oceans, on land. He's worried about species dying out. And there's a nice picture of a polar bear there.
China, United States. That's where there needs to be action.
Yeah.
Britain is leading the way in reduction of greenhouse gases, down 44% since 1990. We're doing very well on it, Kevin, and those ghastly wind turbine farms are giving us more and more electricity. We are doing very well. Michael Gove, a Tory, leading the way on reduction of plastic. We have got quite a good story to tell here. These dreadful people didn't acknowledge any of
But the problem is what you've come out and said effectively tonight is that 3 days of poorer sales in Oxford Street.
2 more next. 2 more. They're doing tomorrow.
OK, 5 days of poor sales in Oxford Street means that you shouldn't protest about something that Sir David Attenborough describes as our greatest threat in thousands of years.
They've stopped people who are very lowly paid, hospital workers,
but it's still
carers,
a short-term, localised view.
Public transport. How are they going to get
a global issue?
Unlike these middle-class twits, they haven't got cars. They haven't got cars.
Low-paid people generally don't drive into London because they can't, one, afford parking,
exactly.
2, can't afford...
And they can't get on the trains because these idiots...
The charges...
These idiots
go on
the train.
No, they did one at Canary Wharf, Docklands Light Rail. I think that was an error by them. They shouldn't have done that.
Right,
The rest of the tubes were running.
Yeah, big issue.